Hey everybody, what's going on? Rob Cesternino, and we are back here as we are witnessing history repeating once again. Week 7, we are 1 week away from finding out the end of Survivor Brains versus Brawn, and now we are back here with the Brainy and Survivor knowledge Brawny. I guess that's very similar to Brainy. Here she is, the queen of international Survivor. It's Shannon Guss. Shannon, how are you?
Hi, Rob. I'm great. And I just want to bring the listeners back to 30 seconds before we pressed record on this podcast. And Rob said, Shannon, what's the name of this podcast?
Yeah,
and then it was
called?
A flawless introduction. It was you did great.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah,
well, that's why, I mean, yeah, that's why, we got to check these things before we start.
But I don't even know anymore. Was that it? It was just repeating?
Who knows? Who knows? Does it matter? We're here, Shannon. The end is in sight.
Nothing
Only
matters.
3 episodes are left.
Yeah, and it's crazy to think that they did a whole week around a Simpsons quote. This is the Boo Earns week of Survivor. Like this was welcome to Earn Week, Rob. You didn't know that you needed
Earn
it.
Week.
But here we are.
Earn the merge, they used to say. Now it's earn the final week before the finale.
Yeah, and it was all about the earns, and this is not a strong week of a otherwise pretty good season.
Where was this week in your rankings of the 8 weeks? Is this 8 out of 8?
It was second last, with week 5 being last, but on the rewatch, I'd probably put this week last because, like, week 5, obviously the twist is terrible, but the merge episode is so strong. And as we said, it's never boring. Knowing that it works out okay is better. It's entertaining watching George and Haley go at it. And this week, like, week 7, watching it again, like, this week could have been an email, really, Like, there wasn't a lot going on in week 7.
Yeah, so of course, the big story this week is the Earn, where basically it's a little bit sort of like with the knowledge is power, something that we had talked about in US Survivor for the last couple seasons of like, hey, if you miss on the knowledge is power, it should be 1 in 5 for the next person. And then keep it going.
Shot in the dark. Yeah.
Yes. And I said knowledge is power.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. You know what I mean? The shot in the dark. And so ultimately, we get Flick coming back into the game in the second episode this week. What would have happened if Flick missed? Then we go to a 1 and 2, and then if nobody gets it there, does it just like, do they even have a tribal council?
Yeah, this was a big question that I had 2 years ago, where I said that the odds of it being last, the save scroll, was 25%, which is not right. I'm so glad we did this podcast so that I could. It's like 4%. That's the odds of it being last. I'm so glad we could correct this. It was worth the whole rewatch. But yeah, I was also confused. Like, how is this not rigged? What happens if it's last? They can't have a whole episode where they know someone is safe. What was the question? I think, this is what Baden said as my guest 2 years ago, and I would probably agree that there were 2 save scrolls, right? Like, is that what it was? So that it was never going to be the last one? Like, it was either going to be, at worst, third? Because they also weren't going to carry it over into next week.
I don't know what they would have done.
Like, it wasn't well thought out, or there was a little bit of shady stuff happening.
Yeah,
because they couldn't go to the last.
So I did kind of not like this here at this point. If this was earlier in the merge, I feel like I would have like maybe liked this more. But what was your opinion on this? The whole idea of the earns.
I didn't love the earns. I thought that they took some heat out of the week. They kept referring to the fact that they had to be more conservative because they were scared someone would come back, which I always thought was interesting that they put that in the actual show, them saying that. In saying that, I still think that they would have, and they did, kind of keep true. But yeah, I thought there was a strong possibility it was rigged so that it wasn't the last earn. I thought that it was very underwhelming from an aesthetic perspective. You couldn't even see that Flick got the save scroll. I realized as well that after this, I went on many rants about the do or die tiny boxes. The same thing that it was just like, oh, it's a little box, and I thought it should have been like, and I realized those were 2 very similar jokes that I made in quick succession about the earns being aesthetically underwhelming and the do or die boxes also just tiny little boxes. And where is the fireworks and the smoke and the whole, and neither one of those things has that,
Yeah. I mean, when Andrew smashes it, it's like, oh, what happened? Did he get it? Did he get it? And then Flick, the same thing.
Yeah,
And
we
I
didn't
don't know if
know.
it should be like some sort of like gender reveal party
I
of
said
like,
the same thing to you, Sakura. I said the exact same thing. I also went gender reveal. Yes.
yeah, it's like, okay, green is safe, red is
Yeah.
you're eliminated. And something like that, where it's just like throw the thing on the floor and then go through the broken glass and see if there's a paper in there.
Now you
Uh,
have to dig through to see if the paper. It is 4%, by the way. I just did the math again. But
Great job.
yeah. So I thought it was extremely underwhelming. I agreed. At the same time, I said big smoke or there should be like an explosion. I said this
Yeah.
about do or die as well. Like it's clearly a thing that I believe. But and as well, Chelsea was medevaced, right? So they clearly probably threw this in last minute. They definitely would have, unless they were going to do a final three. But it
Mhm.
also makes they're like, what do we have around? We have these pieces of paper and tiny little urns.
Urns. Yeah.
So yeah,
But to me, I just feel like that, and it is, I guess, somewhat interesting that Flick goes home in the middle episode, and then it's ultimately Danny who goes home in the next vote, and not Flick again, even though she finds the idol after she comes back into the game. But I just feel like that. What's going to change? Like you get voted out on, day 41. Like pretty good chance you're going to just get voted out again on day 42.
yeah, we see that a lot as well. There's often an honor limit, like the final 7
Yeah.
of Australian Survivor. We see a lot of revolving doors. I mean, Flick went when Danny was immune. So
Mhm.
Danny, and then once you're at a final 5, maybe the game's broken open. Obviously, I know what's going to happen, so I'm not going to talk more about it. Flick has an idol, obviously, as we know, so she's in a good spot. So it kind of was like the best case scenario for Flick to be saved here, have Danny as a shield, have an idol,
Yeah.
and then be able to go from there. But
I feel like if you did this like at the start of the merge, that I do feel like that there's like a little bit more interesting things that could happen, and if like your fate could change, I feel like more when there's so many people in the game potentially. I mean, look at Haley; she gets voted out. It happened. We can't pretend that she
no,
didn't.
we do pretend.
And then she comes
That's
right
never
back,
talking about it again, Rob.
kind of just like this. But I guess maybe people think she might have an idol, but she's able to sort of like change her fate and her trajectory from that point in the game. But if she, you get voted out like this late in the game, like what's going to be different?
Yeah, I mean, we said the same when it was Nina and Simon who were kind of on the
Right.
bottom. And it's interesting that structurally, I feel like this is like a pretty slow time of the game here and in Heroes versus Villains, with a twist thrown in to kind of elongate that for sure. But I think there's something about George, because he controls so much of both of those seasons, obviously, like a large amount. There's something about George's game where, like, at the beginning, he's fighting. So it's always going to be an interesting pre-merge to get to a merge where he's going to use that power to, like, pull some stuff off. Shawnee's going to go home. They make that big merge majority. In this season, so many blindsides really get stuff done, even around the drama with Haley and her going home. And then he gets to, like, a final 8, final 7 where he's like, and now we rest, and, like, he's, like, consolidated that power to be in a good position. And I think I wasn't as impressed with George as I should have been 2 years ago to be like, obviously helped out by the urns and the relationships that he's made, it's a credit to him to push forward with the group where he's always like, now we're stable, let's be a little boring for a week or two, and the audience might complain. But I think it's very much true structurally of both of his seasons, and I think that it's a credit to, like, now I'm in a good spot, let me get to the end with my people.
Yeah. George is really doing a great job here at this point in the game. I had said last week, Way, I had not really felt like had a breakout moment, but this was Way's week, I feel like.
Yeah. I've even got that comment that you kind of materialized that with her challenge win, which I think is definitely like the moment of the week. Low bar, obviously, with this week, but surely that was like the big moment.
Yes, it was Fishbackian in that here she is, like the person who is sort of out of the challenge, who sort of just like shows up at the end. And you remember that challenge, the math challenge in Survivor Token Sheets.
You
yeah,
would know that it's 4% and not 25%.
Yes, where Steven is like way out of it, but then ends up just like walking up. And in the same way, where it seems like that Way was able to get a good head start on the word scramble before she even got to where she was putting the puzzle together, was able to do it. JLP says to us, we know how much Way loves words.
That's the one thing we know. No, I was thinking Chaos Cass, Wayos Cass. In the final 4 of Cagayan, She's also, and the thing that reminds me of it is like the camera always pans back. Like Cass, I remember, is back on that tower for so long, and the camera keeps just like checking in. She's there, and the same thing with Wade. She was so far behind, but it's like if you can just get through that, and then like the puzzle is the great equalizer. So that's an awesome moment for Wade. The challenges I think are like easily the biggest part of this week, where the biggest talking point of the week was definitely George not trying in the challenge. What did you make of this? This caused fury. No, Fuhrer, I think, is like a dictator.
I think
Furor? Way loves words, clearly, more than
an
I
uproar,
do.
for sure.
Uproar?
Yes.
No more. I need to get now off dictators. Now,
yes.
No, what did you think of George in the challenge?
I don't know if it was because of George, but I really kind of was doing the calculus on this. I think that maybe it came up when Kara has the chance to not or to pick which team to back in the reward challenge. And I was just thinking about like sort of like the math of you compete in the challenge, how many calories do you burn versus how many calories do you get here? And I kind of feel like that sitting out of the challenge and not having to compete and getting the opportunity to potentially eat if your side wins is best case scenario.
Yes.
To not even have to burn any calories and you get the calories, but even just to sit out of the challenge and not win is still better than being in the challenge and losing, because you didn't burn all the calories to lose the challenge. And so, like, I do think that there is like an interesting like math of this all.
Well, that was not how the audience responded to this.
No.
All the players.
Or Flick.
Yes, and that's going to be a big talking point. This was heated online. Dictator level heated, where people were so angry that George had sat out of the challenge, not sat out, that he hadn't tried. Because it starts off where he and Wei are both like scared to jump, right? So that's the first thing. They're both scared.
He can't jump that far, Shannon.
He can't jump. He was literally.
He can't jump that far. Look at him. Look at the. He'll show you.
I love that part.
He could jump from here to here. He can't get that far.
He's like, Wei, look how far I can jump. And Wei's like, whatever they're paying me for 42 days of this has not been enough so far. I don't begrudge the fear. And I don't begrudge any of this personally. It's not my value system. But I do think that if you jump and fail, it is helpful. Like it's all
look
about
at Adam
perception,
Klein.
Right? Yes, and there was a Survivor South Africa player. This was a big thing where she couldn't get it. She wasn't tall enough, but the continuous trying was enough.
Yeah, look at Suri on the balance beam.
100%. So I think there's something there of just trying in the face of all failure, which is, again, something I don't care about. People wanted Sandra to sit on the edge of extinction just to do it. We don't quit. Why? Sandra knows herself and her limits. She wanted to go to Australia for her own pre-jury trip. Let the queen go. I like that. I like the logic that you're saying. Let's count calories against effort. That, for me, makes a lot of sense. For the audience, and what we'll talk about one day with the jurors, they didn't like just not trying. And even worse, not even attempting to pretend to make, not out of fear, but out of lack of effort, the stick. People were very mad about the stick, not trying to make the long stick. So
the stick. Okay.
Yeah. So when he's sitting out in the challenge for the
he's out of it. Come on. George is giving you so much entertainment, people.
I agree with you. But this is the origin story of many things, by the way, in terms of our origin story. Firstly, the long stick challenge is what Simon wins in episode 7 of Heroes vs. Villains. And he even says to George, isn't this the one you sat out of? The barbs start coming. Secondly, George's hatred of the Spar Award, which went through, even on Talking Tribal, he hated the Spar. I think he blamed the Spar Award for some stuff. And then he goes on the Spar Award and Liz kind of redeems it for him in Heroes vs. Villains. And then also the most important one is how much effort George put into preparing physically for Heroes vs. Villains, because he was like, I'm not doing that again from a game or audience perspective, because it was so fiery that people were so angry about it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. Well, it did not bother me, and I thought it was very fun television.
I would have been shocked if you came out angry at
George, how dare you? That's it. I revoke my George fandom after this.
Yeah. People were so mad. Rob, you had to be there.
People get mad about dumb things. Leave George alone.
Yeah, it very
He's
much
not
was
the
that
king
moment.
of rewards, okay? He doesn't get to go on
Danny.
every reward like Danny, the queen of rewards.
Queen of Rewards, who how many of the reward alliances worked wrong?
I think 0.
It was none of them. She goes on
was
every reward. She tries it every time.
She tries it every time. Maybe people don't feel like it's special.
0% success rate. I completely agree with you. It's like 100%. If you go up to every woman you meet and say, you know, you're the one person I'm gonna marry, then that's not, you know, if you say it to one person, that's special.
You say it to one person, but I guess she's playing the percentages. She's like, hey, it only has to work once.
But it never did.
It never did. It never did. Yeah.
No.
Do you want to talk through the week?
Yes.
Okay.
Hard to pass this one out because the same thing happens like 3 different times.
Yes. Okay. Well, episode 19 kicks off, and we have sort of Andrew stewing about he's big mad with Haley and Way. And I liked it when Haley tries to talk to Andrew and she says, I just want to talk to you, about how you feel about, and he's like, your traitorship.
I doubt myself as a content creator that I didn't make Andrew a meme at the time. Because it's so obvious to me now. Like, every episode for the last, 5 episodes has started with him being just, indignant about people playing the game. And I feel like Haley handles it pretty well. Like, even when they're chosen for the reward together, she's like, best friends. Like, she's, really just trying to, just, bring him into the fact that this is okay. But he's so angry. So angry that they would betray him.
And he's joined, the Emmett Club of, well, I know I can't win, but I really don't want George to win.
Yeah, he's very angry at George, and he has some really fun stuff around how he's the alpha.
Yes.
And how he would take himself out, and his plan is to win every challenge, which does not go well. He immediately loses the next. Yeah.
So. Yeah, he doesn't win any. So
doesn't win any of the challenges.
Yes, poor Andrew.
No.
So there's 7 people left in the game, and George and Cara and Haley and Way have voted together. There's not really a great hope here for Andrew. I guess that that his biggest hope is that he's been working with Way. Maybe Way could come back to the fold.
Yeah, and also, I remember this being a little different in the screeners as well, in a way that was gaslighting me, where they leaned even heavier on Way being manipulated by George, which I'm almost certain she has since debunked. And even in the version we get, she's like, I don't know that I believe George. They put a lot on George is manipulating Way, that she thinks Andrew wants to get her out. Whereas I think she just went with a plan eventually because Way was the plan that everyone else wanted to do. But they leaned hard on that, I think.
Okay, well, tell me about that, because in the episode, George is like, all right, well, in the political world, you got to tell some lies. And so he goes and tells Way. Andrew is he's crazy. He wants to vote you out.
Yeah. Again, even more.
Andrew.
Even more.
Oh my God. He's lost it. He's psychotic.
There's no way that Way believed that. Again, I'm pretty sure she's confirmed that to be true. But George had to manipulate Way. It was interesting because in the reward, Danny says to Way that George told her that Way and Haley were going to come for Danny. And I thought, this is confusing because she was like, I was with you before that. Who was with what? Danny thought she was with Way and Haley. Is the first thing. Secondly, did Way and Haley say that? Did George say that to Danny? Is Danny lying? Was George lying? No, that was just a very vague conversation about something we'd never seen. That was never clarified. And then later, I feel but then George does have this similar lie to that where he says, oh, Andrew's coming for you. And I feel this week for me is so hard. And one of the reasons I would put it as the worst week of the season is because I feel everything's connected through very bad Frankenbites. Were you getting this as well? I feel this week more than ever, so Frankenbitten, these like platitudes. I'm George from Banks or whatever. Like, oh, Danny, I need to make big moves. Even to the point where at one point George says the same thing twice at Tribal Council, the same line they put in. Haley has a couple of repeated lines from clearly Frankenbit in confessionals. Like, I feel like there was no genuine detailed transparency, and it's all just connected through these like terrible Frankenbites. So I don't know what's real. You know,
I can't say that I caught it myself.
it was worse
But
on the rewatch. I think.
yeah.
And I also, because I think I know that the editing was so last minute through my changed screeners that I can see those mistakes coming through, and it doesn't have like the. I mean, not that they have it
see the
other
Matrix,
times.
Shannon.
Yeah.
That's how good you are.
No, I mean, like George said the same thing at a Tribal Council. Like, you know, they put the line in twice, and I feel like there just wasn't the extra days to be like, wait, no, fix that. So I was really feeling that this week, and I feel like the storylines, and also because they're trying to create so much drama out of nothing, because it's the most boring week, that I feel like I really felt that a lot.
All right. So at the reward, so Cara, she bets on the this was a great move by Cara that I would have bet on George and Haley and Andrew. I feel like, you know, Andrew is good at the challenges. Haley is no slouch. And I would have bet on them, but she goes with Danny, Flick, and Way, and they win, and they win, and they go on the reward. And the big move is that Danny is going to try to get Cara to flip on George here.
From memory, my screener was also different. This is all the screener. This is now what this podcast has become around Cara choosing stuff. I feel like the screener might have had her just getting a team or something. Like, but I'm pretty sure this was right. I think she chose a team. If you look at it, we don't actually see her choose the team. Like, we never see her mouth moving to say those things. I'm so wary about the editing of this whole week. But as far as I know, she actually did choose that team. I agree. You would think like Andrew and Haley, who have been like the two best challenge competitors. But Danny has been the queen of rewards. So I guess like attaching yourself to Danny is a good thing. And then you get to go on a reward with Danny where she's going to pitch going against George to Cara. So, I mean, that's all she has. So, yeah.
So it's a little bit sensitive with Way, I guess. And I don't think she totally trusts George. And it seems like that there is like a little bit of an understanding of like that Cara is like, okay, George, we're gonna let Way talk. We're not gonna cut her off. We're not gonna interrupt her. And then I feel like they're gonna let Way feel like she's heard, but then really just like have Haley tell Way like the action. So like really that they're just see, it seems like that what they're doing is that they're just sort of like, okay, let Way say what she has to say, but then really we'll talk to Haley and then Haley will pass the information to Way.
Yeah. It's a good Cara scene before an unfortunate idle play where she's having to manage both, you know, Way and George, which is a, you know, like 6 week thing that she's been in. It's crazy that this is George and Way though, like back together now, like having these issues when so much had happened by week 2 with them, and here we are with them.
Yeah. And so we have our immunity challenge here in this episode. And so it's an endurance challenge. They're holding up on the rings. And Andrew tells us pretty early on, like, I can go for a couple hours here. This is no problem.
Yeah, he's going. But you know what? At a point, they have to drop to just one hand, right? And then when Haley wins, Andrew I noticed he said, I should have used my right hand. So I went back. And yeah, Flick and Andrew use their left hands. And Haley uses... Why? I mean, he says they should have used my right hand, so I'm going to assume he's right-handed. Who would make that decision to use their non-dominant hand to hold up their entire body weight? Could this have been the difference? Is Andrew the winner of the season if this doesn't happen?
No, definitely not. Definitely not.
You answered that so seriously.
I don't think so. Yeah.
Can you imagine that season? Can you imagine how that would have to be edited? We wouldn't be sitting here talking about it. I think that would be the difference, that sliding doors moment.
Yeah. Okay, so Haley wins another immunity. How many immunities is this for Haley?
This is the second.
Only the second? I feel like she's done more than that.
No, because Emmett won like all of them at first. Andrew won a couple.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So it's all coming down to Way, the swing vote. And that's when Andrew is going to allegedly tell his story. And boy, this is just classic Andrew coming out of nowhere with wanting to go that way.
I want to see the
So
world.
emotional Andrew.
I mean, maybe with like that is true of Andrew, but I just want to see the game through Andrew's eyes. Like in his mind, it's like Andrew versus George. It's like, yeah, in the telling of this, it's gonna be George versus like unspecified character in the background. I think Andrew saw himself as like the big bad wolf. That was not was not how we interpreted it. Surely.
No. Shannon, we see George once again go to work. He's been so deadly in this post merge of constantly in the spy shack. And this is so funny when he does this because he comes back and he's like bragging. He's like, "Oh my God, I can't believe it. Did it again. Haley, can you believe this? I was spying again."
I know. And the last person he spied on was her. And we're all just like accepting that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like he's bugged the whole camp, but the bug is George the cockroach.
Yeah. The cockroach of Bankstown is always listening.
One of my favorite lines from this week is that when Haley, I think, wins the challenge, he says to her verbatim, "I told you to stop being a pawn and start being a queen." And yeah, I think he said that in the pre-merge. You can just imagine that that's how George is trying to work with people. Like when he was like on the bottom, and I guess it worked. She did save him, but you can imagine that he was like, "Stop being a pawn." And is that the way to communicate with people, George? And yeah, he brings it back here. But George and Haley's relationship is so interesting. I really feel it's just a fascinating one, knowing where it goes.
Yeah, I mean, he branded her Queen Haley pretty early on.
Yeah, he really did. He needed a queen. And he didn't give it to Kara. Kara's the Duchess.
The Duchess. I can see that. She's like a real housewife.
Yeah, he calls her the Duchess of Double Bay, and I'm pretty sure that's her Instagram handle now.
Oh.
And then was Wei the princess? Because it's like his royal court, right? So I'm pretty sure she was the princess or a different royal title. Yeah, that's just like the George and Haley relationship, especially like again knowing that they're close friends, which is something I did not know at the time. I actually always remember Haley telling me that after the season. She was like, "I love George," and I was like, I didn't expect you guys, but they bonded a lot. I think in like,
how could you not love him?
I agree, but I didn't think that it was necessarily like as close as they were. Haley had only a couple people from the show at her wedding, including George. So I didn't think that. I think they bonded a lot in the airing of the show, like during lockdown and having that experience together. But like they're closer out there than I would have realized. But something that's so interesting to me is watching George. I'm just more impressed with him than I was 2 years ago. And I was very impressed 2 years ago. But hearing people say all the time, like, "I want to get George out. He's such a threat." Clearly they don't. And the fact that he just like evades that, I think I'm just, at the time, obviously I was super impressed with Haley and I still am. And it's not about comparing the two of them, but I was like kind of overwhelmed by the character of George and kind of how bad of a start he had. But like putting that aside and sitting with it and, being able to look past it because it's been 2 years, I'm just so impressed with how he navigates through all of this. It's very, very good.
He thinks about the game so much, and maybe him and Haley, that you could say like it's 1-2, and then there's a big gap between anybody else, and he's always fighting, and the challenges aside, and he's just so much fun to watch him work.
Yeah, other than that challenge, the challenges.
Yeah, but he doesn't care about the challenges. Like, I think that what he ultimately realizes is like, I don't care about this. This isn't that important, but other people do. So for appearances, I need to clean this up in my game.
Yeah, I think that it's an important rule to think about in Survivor, like to mimic the values of the jury.
Yeah.
Like to go into heroes versus villains knowing that, he ends up aligning with an Olympic athlete. Like there are probably going to be very physically minded people. I need them to at least think that I care about this. I need to, up my game in that. And I think that this was a good week for George, but the worst move he makes is just that on pure perception. I don't care if he can make the stick and go to a spa reward in any capacity, but I think from a strategic perception perspective, he had to at least pretend to look like he was making the stick.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Unfortunate.
All right. Shannon, we talked about the urn. Okay, JLP brings it out. 1 in 4 chance. I had to rewind this a couple times. Like, wait, what happens? What are we doing? Okay, you have a 1 in 4 chance. I wasn't exactly sure if the urn was going to carry over, but it will.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's ding, marry, kill. Urns.
Yep.
Someone voting, Danny voting someone out individually and sending them to Redemption Rock.
Okay.
That's all part of the thing. And then George's day one, half the people leave tribal council advantage.
Yeah, so I liked it then. I still like it. So that's for me number 1.
You're gonna marry that?
I guess I'll marry it. I guess that's it's marry. It means it comes back every season. Ding means it happens once, and kill means it never happens again.
Okay.
So
makes more sense.
Then I would say then kill Danny's thing, and then I would ding this. But
yeah,
I would have it earlier in the merge.
This is just more neutral. It was unfortunate that it became like the Groundhog Week where they were all it's the same. And
this was just like the reset, and it was dumb because what's going to change?
Yeah, they really are attached to starting advantages, or like twists around Final 7, which ironically they don't do in Heroes versus Villains. They do it the Final 6, and Haley goes at Final 7 and famously says, "I hope there's no exile." But yeah, they in the Final 7 is such an important vote, especially with the Final 2. And there's usually just something there that puts it some on the scale, unfortunately, in Australian Survivor.
Yeah. Okay. So Andrew's vote here is for Flick. Well, what's going on? Why is he voting for Flick? What did he think was going to happen?
Andrew just started playing Survivor 10 minutes ago, where he thought, why vote against the opposition? I guess he knows Wade's not on his side. And he's going to try to get his foot in the door, like a lot of winners do when they're on the bottom. Danny, Chris, not this Danny vote right. As he should, as he's blamed so many others for doing, for turning against their allies in the face of adversity.
Yeah.
And he does it, and as he should. Why vote against George? It's not going to work.
Yeah. So. Did the brains tell him they were voting for Flick?
From memory, I think he did know. But even if he doesn't know, like if Wei hasn't flipped, because it's just Wei who's a swing vote. If Wei hasn't flipped, then either he goes home and it doesn't matter, or one of the girls goes home and then he showed he's more workable than whoever else is left. Or if Wei has flipped, it's a 3-3-1 and he's probably okay anyway. Like I doubt Danny and Flick are just giving up a majority because they're mad that he voted for Flick. So his vote actually isn't important. Is Andrew thinking about all of these things on this level?
No.
Maybe. I doubt it. But I think that Andrew voting for Flick is the best move he made all season. Low bar.
Give him a chizzy point.
No. It's not that good, but it is the best thing he's done to this point. It made sense to try and get in with the majority and show that you're workable rather than just stewing in your own anger for several weeks.
I like what you said about Stu.
I'm going to miss Andrew.
Let's talk about episode number 20, Shannon. Here we go. Episode 20. And so Way's a little sad that Andrew's not there anymore.
Yeah. See, someone misses Andrew.
Yeah. And we get a montage at the end of this episode where Andrew is gone and George is now crowning himself the alpha of the tribe. And he is bragging to everybody. He says, I'm the strongest man, the strongest guy out here for miles. He says, look at me. I'm out here. I'm cleaning my clothes without my mom.
George isn't saying that to be funny. Like, that's actually how he feels.
Yes. Look at him. Look at him. Yeah. Meanwhile, Danny's like, I'm the alpha.
So have you seen Encanto?
I have seen parts of it.
When your kids watch it?
Yes.
Have you seen Pressure Like a Drip, Drip, Drip That Will Never Stop?
Yep.
Whoa, Danny is Louisa from Encanto, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's been in my head for 2 days because I'm like, she really reminds me of Louisa.
Mm-hmm.
She's so strong.
She's very strong.
She kind of looks like her.
I mean, she's come a really long way, Danny. You know, for somebody that I thought was like a nothing burger, she
Yeah.
really
Ooh.
did like play a role this season. And she was like called George the cockroach, but she's been, I feel like, on the bottom for basically the entire merge.
Are you up for round 2? Would you want to see Danny again?
I'm good. I think we got it, but I feel like that she went a lot further than I thought she would. I thought that she was probably the next person out after Simon went home.
Yeah, I agreed. I thought that I thought that Haley had kind of voted them both out at the same time, like a 2-for-1 deal, because she'd been so depowered, and she came back from that, and I was
Yeah.
impressed with that.
And she was like so indignant about the Simon thing and like who voted for me. And ultimately, she went on this really impressive reward run. She's had a good social game. She's been able to bounce back. I thought that she was a little bit kind of like a lunch lady Denise.
Yeah, seen
And
that
I,
too.
I thought she was going to be somewhat limited as a player, but no, she actually ended up like really like while she did sort of get a good hate into George, I felt like that she still was trying a lot of different things.
Yeah, I mean, she's kind of like Emmett, I guess, in that I thought she was really entertaining in this season. Would we get any new evolution in a
No.
return? That would be my concern. So that would be maybe why I would be hesitant for her coming back. But in terms of this season, she had so many iconic things. The fact that she would turn on her allies
Hmm.
randomly at the inopportune times when she really needed their number and their shield, that was the Danny
Yeah.
thing. The fact that she kept trying at rewards and failing every single time. At the time, I remember I tweeted out just like tombstones of every reward alliance, and with like 2021 to 2021, never even succeeded for even one vote. That's fine. The fact that she like wasn't picking up on subtleties, had to have things like over explained to her. She like obviously did vote up Aiden by herself, made the fire. There was a lot going on with Danny. I think she was a really fun character. But yeah, I think it's a
Hmm.
little one note, but I enjoyed her.
Also, that we get this final six and we get it twice, but it is an interesting final six in terms of how it's structured because it's really 2v2v2 in that we have like three pairs here at the final six.
Yeah. It's quite interesting how Danny as well and Flick, which was a portmanteau we really struggled with in either direction. I don't need to have to say it, but the first letter of each's name with the last parts of anyway, we all get it, right?
Fanny?
And
I mean, Fanny is great.
but
That's a
what's the
great
other one?
portmanteau.
Fanny and well in Australia, I guess, and it was Dick. Anyway,
Hmm.
those are the two options. And like again, we never really understood much about their relationship, but they're so close now, even though they've been on opposite sides of Brawn, but that seems like a really long time ago. And
Hmm.
yeah, Haley and Wei have become very, very close. Whaley. George and Kara, that's the pair we understand the most, probably.
Hmm.
Yeah.
But that has the worst portmanteau combinations.
Georgia.
Georgia?
Yeah.
I don't think you can just add to a thing.
Well, you don't think that partnership is almost all George? The portmanteau is just
Mm,
George.
yeah.
George et al. Like,
Mhm.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, well, it is. It's yeah, 3 pairs.
Yeah.
Pretty
All right.
interesting.
So we go to our immunity challenge. This is the shortest episode of the week by far. And no reward here. We go to the immunity challenge and Wei foregoes the challenge. George goes through it, but then stops. Is like, I can't do this jump. Come
Yeah.
on. Come
That's
on.
a man who's gonna be on The Amazing Race. So
Mhm.
I'm hoping that he gets it done for The Amazing Race when, the heights, that's a big thing in The Amazing Race. George doesn't like
Mhm.
heights. Who would make this decision to then do The Amazing Race?
Yep. And so ultimately it comes down to Danny, Flick, Haley, and Kara. And it is finally going to be Danny is the winner of the immunity.
Yeah. What a
So
week for Danny. Until she
congratulations,
goes
Danny.
home.
At the end of the challenge, then George tells Danny, he's like, oh, please, Danny, you should lead today. It's like, that's very magnanimous of him.
Yeah. Even though I don't think. Do you think Danny still hates George? Do you think? No, I think that they're in a good spot.
At this point,
Like she
I
wants
think
to
she
get him
hates
out.
him.
Do you think she hates him?
I mean, oh, she like hates him, but I think
Not
that
like Andrew
she,
hate,
yeah, not quite, but I don't think she truly appreciates him
as she should.
as she should. His entertainment value. Okay. George wants Flick to go home.
Yes, that's the only option. Danny wanted you to be.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
that's where we're at with that.
Yeah, he's wanting Flick to go home. He wants to stick with the royal family. I have in my notes, extra, extra, Flick's going to get the Flick.
Love that.
Mm-hmm.
I love that we got actually. Who sent us an actual
Newspaper.
Incredible. The fans of this podcast find me better fans. It was so good. I'm so sorry that I have to now go on my phone. Yeah, here we go. Stan. Incredible. Here it is on my for the people.
Here, I'll
on
make
Twitter.
you go full screen. Here we go.
Oh, okay.
Extra, extra. Haley gets blown out of the water by the big bad bazooka from Bankstown.
And it even has a picture of Haley getting her torched off, which is weird because I don't remember that happening. Do you remember that? When I don't think that happened. So I'm never talking about it again, Stan.
Vaguely remember. Okay. All right. So, all right. Flick's going to get the Flick. George is worried Haley and Way could switch.
Well, Haley says they're going to make it look like we're going to switch, but don't get paranoid. And Kara's like, I am so paranoid right now.
Yes. But this is like, and Haley is in her glory. I was talking about on the podcast last week. Haley loves and excels when she is the one in the middle. This is like, you couldn't draw this up better for Haley.
It's very reminiscent of OG Brains, right? Like she's in the middle. Everyone trusts her, so she has power. Like, it's funny. She's been through so much, but she's gotten back to a very similar position that she was in very early on.
She's so good in this spot. I mean, that the times that she's struggled is when, she's like in the majority, too powerful, or like on the bottom and is like scrambles way too hard. But her in the middle where both sides need her, this is just like peak Haley.
Yeah, and a testament to, like, she didn't just wind up here. She has relationships on all the sides. She's a big threat. She might have had that threat level reduced because she got voted out. Is that never talking about it again? But even in that, I still think that they should see her as a huge threat. She's a huge physical threat, and she just isn't even remotely targeted. And her relationship with Way, I think, is very underrated because they're super, super tight and making these decisions together. So I think that's important as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. All right. Tribal Council at the final 6, part 1. All right. Flick is in trouble. George is talking about how there's a strength in numbers. Was George wearing something unusual at Tribal Council?
Next episode. Oh, this episode? I can't remember.
I think it's this episode.
2 final 6s and the same people. He wore a skirt in this episode?
He wore because it's dark at Tribal Council and I couldn't really make it out, but yeah, he talked about how there's a cold draft tonight. Maybe could be his attire.
Yeah, he puts that on before the Tribal Council. I just didn't remember which final 6. It was a very similar week because it's the girls, Rob. This is a very This is not like the new era. I'm joking.
Yeah.
It's a very female dominated season, which we love to see.
George, that he's with all the women here, but then he does like try on the guys thing in Survivor Heroes versus Villains.
What do you mean in terms of the guys alliance?
Yeah.
No, when you just try on the guys thing, I don't know what you meant.
Yeah,
but he also has got the Spice Girls.
He has the Spice. He does the Spice Girls, and he's been working with Liz. But he does like, I feel like ultimately want to do. So he could, do either thing.
I think George empowers a lot of women through his 2 runs. Obviously he and Haley work really well together. His main ally through anything is Kara.
Sure.
He's super close with Liz. Definitely helps her get to where she gets to. Close with Shawnee to a point. There's been a lot of like key female allies.
George hates broy guys.
True. That is, and then it's gonna be, and there's so many broy guys in Australian Survivor in both his seasons. Like Brawn and Heroes are the same tribe.
He doesn't want anything to do with them.
Yeah, that's not George's speed.
Yeah. So he does
all women and beta men. That's George's allies.
All right. So
it sounds like a great band name. Women and Beta Men.
Women and Beta Men?
Yeah, I think so.
Is it George and the Women and the Beta Men?
George and the Women and the Beta Men. And that's getting a little... Yeah, let's see the album cover. We're getting newspapers. I want the album cover of George and the Women and the Beta Men.
Okay, we'll ask Dolly Minnie to work on that. All right. yeah, George, this is when I guess he says the same thing twice, but it's such a good quote of that his quote. He says, "Tonight is not about making stupid decisions." And then again, he says it twice.
They
tonight,
play it twice.
yeah, they play it twice because it's so
One.
good. And then but the second time he says, "Tonight is not about making stupid decisions. There are big decisions and there are smart decisions."
George and Haley are getting so much content. They're literally getting things repeated.
Yes.
And Chelsea Ham Sandwich got even one line.
No.
This is why she had to go, so that we could get double.
But she didn't have one line that was as good as that.
That we know of.
That we know of. Okay.
What if she's the most entertaining person in the world and we just never knew?
I think we know.
We probably know.
Yeah. All right. So ultimately, George votes for Flick. Danny and Flick vote for George. The question's going to be, what is Way doing?
What is Way doing?
What is Way doing?
Saying it's the majority.
Okay. And then frickin' Kara stands up.
Paranoid.
Paranoid. I like that. She stands up and plays the idol for herself. Why? I mean, I would understand it if she played it for George even.
No, then she would have maybe self-sacrificed again, Rob. No more self-sacrificing.
I guess so. But what? And nobody was even talking about Kara. I don't think her name came up once in the whole episode.
There were so many questions.
The girls wanted to work with her.
They said, don't get spooked. They said it explicitly. So many things. The first one being they're not going to flip on you. The second one being if they flip on you, they're going to vote for George. Why would they ever vote for you before George? So definitely don't play it on George.
I mean, that like when we talk about Flick in the next episode, I feel like that's what she's thinking.
Well, it's definitely not what she's thinking, but it should be what she's thinking.
Okay.
I think Flick, we'll talk about Flick. Flick was blindsided, but she could be thinking, which is, what Kara should be thinking is they may not or probably won't flip. Even if they flip, they're definitely voting for George. So I definitely don't need to play it on myself. And I can't play it on George because then they'll just split and I'll go home. I'll self-sacrifice again. And even if somehow they flip and they put me in front of George for some reason, who on earth would, anyway, even if they do that, then I still get a 1 in 3 chance of picking an urn.
Yes.
It's just underratedly, like, I know that they talk about it, but it's even worse.
She cooked it.
About it.
She cooked it.
And it's hard with Kara because I think there's a perception problem where she's always going to have to like reckon with the fact that she accidentally voted out Dady and like it's a bit of a meme. It's definitely a meme. So she like at a final tribal council, theoretically, she would have to talk against that of like, no, I'm not the silly player. I know what's going on. And to make such a bad move. It's just terrible from a perception perspective. And it's bad to lose an idol. And it's just very questionable all around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I don't know what, like, should George be like, Kara, sit down? He
should just tackle her.
Yeah. Kara, no, cut it out. Shut it down.
We've seen tackling. We've done that in the first week of Blood versus Water at Tribal Council for an idol. George should have stood up in his skirt and tackled her.
Yeah. Somebody tell their ally, like, don't.
Well, we've seen them tell their
Kelly Kim. Yeah, Kelly Kim turns to Lauren Ashley Beck and be like, hey, should I have 2 idols. Should I play my idol tonight? And what's that?
You have such good recall for 39 in a way that I simply do not.
Yes, well, yeah, look, you went through it once and that was enough for you. And we appreciated your contributions that season for sure. But yeah, Kelly Kim had 2 idols and Lauren Ashley Beck is like, no, don't play your idols. And that basically like that he who shall not be named would have gone home.
Well, that happens all the time. Like the only time we see, when David says to Liz, "Oh, play it on yourself, not Shawnee." And the famous one is Benji in Australian Survivor. Sean got up. You hadn't seen this far, but Sean got up to play her idol on Matt Rogers. He said, no, play it on yourself. Sent Matt Rogers home. So people only do this as an attack. It feels not, with but I do wonder,
George talks about in the next episode, like Haley and Way didn't even know we had that idol. So I wonder if he felt like I can't say to Kara and act like, no, Kara, not tonight.
when she's bringing out the idol, he would then also, I'm just finding out about that you have an idol.
What? You have an idol? But don't play it tonight, though.
Yeah,
We don't need
Kara,
it.
what? This is brand new information.
Where
Don't
did you get
play
the
it.
idol from?
Yeah, and tackle her. I
Yeah.
think I think that because, and then it as well, and then Kara's excuse later was going to be, I was so confused because of the urns, and they're like, that makes no sense. Like, there's no world if you can't just keep saying urns like how we did that entire week of 2021 and make it make sense, because this is not about the urns. The urn should have made you play it less. Why were you confused? I think you should have tackled her. I think that would have
been good. That would have been good. Okay. All right. Ultimately, so Flick is safe.
Is she? I got to really squint.
Yes.
What
They
on
tell us
earth
what they
is
tell
going on?
us. Yes.
They have to. They have to tell us, because there was no explosion. What looks worse? This or the do or die tiny boxes? What is a worse spectacle of saving?
This is worse. This is worse.
This because it's so confused, and it's on the floor. Well, why am I looking at the floor? And the camera person has to get on the floor. No.
Because Jeff, like, immediately, like there's a reaction immediately. Like, this was like, okay, oopa, and then it's a little, everyone's like staring in the yes, good luck. And everybody's like, oh my god, what is it? What is it? Is it there? Like
I'll always remember breaking a plate at a restaurant, and my grandma was like, it's fine, they do this all the time in like Greek tradition. And I was like, but we are at an Italian restaurant.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you did it, you threw the plate on the ground.
No, I just accidentally, I was a kid, like I accidentally broke a plate and I was upset.
Yeah.
And she was like, this is a thing that is done. And I was like, but we're not at a Greek restaurant.
Yeah.
It was a sweet attempt.
Mhm.
I've spoken about my grandparents so much on this podcast. I don't know why, but anyway, my point is that both the do or die and urn spectacles are terrible. And the production department, the art department, could have jazzed it up for both.
Okay.
More
what are you
fireworks.
gonna do? What are you gonna do? More fireworks for sure. Okay. So let's talk about episode 21. And Danny and Flick, back to work. Back to work. We're gonna get a Haley way, and this time it's gonna work.
We're going through the revolving door.
We're gonna this time. It didn't work last night, but tonight is the night.
Yeah. And well, there's no more urns, which is a fair point. Which is a fair point.
Yeah.
It's a little different because they kept saying, like, what are we going to vote George out and he comes back in? Which, you know, I hate to say it's rigged. Can you imagine if they voted George out and then I don't even want to be a part of that discourse that never happened. I'm so glad that they didn't vote him out.
Yeah.
Speaking of Rob, have you noticed we're at the final five, we're about to be when Danny goes in a second. Every person's been voted out pretty much except George.
Yeah, it is like a wild season where they've all been through this. It's a season of like it's a real like rogues gallery of people who have been through it. Kara been voted out. Flick been voted out. Haley, of course, been voted out. And then
Way with the advantage from episode one.
Way's I mean, yeah, I guess so. I guess that I do that, like that for real doesn't count.
What? Why? Was she saved by an advantage, or was she? Or well, I guess that's more advantage than twist, which is like George was saved by an idol.
I mean, it's like if somebody like played the idol and they would have got voted out. I don't say like okay, they were out of the game.
I know, but 6 people went from tribal. I agree, it's less, but it's still it's a funny final five. Especially George also was almost out the door at Brains, and then the idol saved him, and then Kara went to Brawn. But it's such a testament to this season. And when I was like looking at a lot of stats during Heroes versus Villains, and like George's stats, I'd go through both seasons, and the Wikipedia chart for the season is so all over the place. It's like didn't vote, only Danny vote, you know, and Heroes vs. Villains is so smooth comparatively. So the fact that we have like this group of 5 to the point where even they like Kara and Haley have like a full discussion in Tribal Council about what it's like to be voted out and come back in, and what. So that's where we're at with this final 5 and this whole season. It's a fever dream.
Okay, so all right, this time it's gonna work. George, I feel like is shading Kara a little bit about her being an empath.
Do you think so? Is that the vibe?
I think so. He's like, well, look, Kara the empath. She thought, she couldn't tell she was gonna be safe.
Well, no one said she was an empath for idols.
Yeah. All right.
There is a suspense, I feel, and a tension this whole week because it's very simple split votes every time, but like who knows? So is the Danny vote. So that's another little level of intrigue of how this might go wrong.
All right, let's talk about the Queen of Rewards. Back at it.
Danny's gonna win a spa reward. Should we ding, marry, kill, fourth thing? Danny's 4 rewards.
Okay, well, in terms of like what the rewards were,
Yeah. So what was there? She got
she
the
got
car.
D-Max.
Marry
Yeah,
the car.
D-Max.
She got Italian food. She
Yeah.
got spa, and then the other thing was Mexican food. There was another one.
I don't know.
Also, one of the rewards, I'm pretty sure the one that might be Mexican but probably isn't, had loved ones videos that were either a secret scene or I found out about it after the fact.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
it
that
wasn't
makes it
in
better.
the
Yeah, it wasn't in the
extended
episode.
screener that you got.
Not extended. It was just very different. Can you imagine? Like, Rob, a very detail-oriented person. Can you imagine the episodes being slightly different to what maybe? Can you imagine how? I cried.
Yeah.
Many times.
Okay. All right. So yeah, they get Haley, and they're like, Haley, we should vote out George, and she's like, all right, let's do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, she does say that. She does. And they're at the spa, and they're like, Haley will definitely not screw us over again in the exact same capacity as literally yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
But she
No,
does.
she will. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fine. Fine. Look, that this is a good plan.
Yeah.
Because what are you gonna do? I thought about this. Like, if you're Danny and Flick, like, could you go to George and Cara and just like say, hey, look, Haley, she's telling us everything. Let's vote out Haley. I think that Haley would just be like, hey, that was rude. Okay, now I'm voting you out. And I think the other side would go with Haley.
Yeah, I think that you would be like, Haley has won 2 immunity challenges. Haley's the biggest threat. Like, instead of putting it all on George, like that's where you go to the other side. But I think what's really hard is that in the 3 pairs, like Flick and Danny are the biggest threat to get out right now. They're massive jury threats. They've got all of Brawn on the other side. They're the underdogs. Flick's got her incredible story. They're both actually immunity threats in their own right. Danny's won every reward. Flick is an athlete, a professional athlete.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're very tight with each other. They're not super tight with you. Like, I think all 4 are incentivized to keep chipping away at this. So they're in a tough spot. The thing is, as well, is like Danny should not take Flick on this reward. First, the first person she picks is Flick. She leaves them behind to find an idol. Cara just played an idol that's going to be rehidden that Flick will find. But still, she doesn't leave anyone to find an idol back at camp, to keep an eye on that situation. Like, she should take Haley and Wei, work on them both. It's crazy that she takes Flick. Like, it's really underratedly bad decision, I think.
But I mean, I feel like that Flick has been on I think all of these rewards, so why break it up? And then I think they feel like
insanity.
Yes, I think they feel like, okay, if we get Haley, we're gonna get Wei. That's a 2 for 1.
I agree, but firstly, you might as well work on them both. And also, it's about leaving Wei back with George and Cara. It's about the idol finding. I think you just want to divide and conquer. Like, it's crazy to me that
you make a good point. You do make a good point, but guess what? Flick's gonna find the idol anyway.
That is irrelevant, Rob.
One, I don't think it's irrelevant.
It's irrelevant to the decision making because they don't know that that's going to happen, and the odds are that George
I said you have a good point, but ultimately it doesn't matter because Flick finds the idol.
It matters in our theoretical decision making. Matters a lot. Really matters a lot.
How many idols is this for Flick?
1.
Well, I mean, she got the other one from Karen/Kez.
You got there. Yeah, but that doesn't. She didn't find that idol.
Yeah. Did she find one earlier, or
no,
that was Kez? Kez found the idols.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she's also gonna get a fake idol from Simon to Sean.
True.
Later.
True.
This is I mean, not Kez. Flick is handed more idols than she finds.
Yes. She has.
Well, the one that wasn't real.
Yeah.
The equal amount.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, all right. So then Flick has the idol, but doesn't play it when we get to this tribal council. Why not?
Well, you think she's thinking either they're with us or Danny will go before me. Really good to keep the idol for a 5 in case Danny does go?
Yeah.
But is
Well,
that what you think? You think it's that well thought out?
I don't know. I mean, Survivor 44 spoilers incoming. I mean, I feel like that we had the final 6 last season, and Heidi in a similar situation did play the idol at the final 6, and everybody was like, "You idiot, why'd you play the idol at the
Well,
final
that's
6?"
very, very different
Yes.
situation.
So
Heidi was in no trouble. Flick here is pretty much a 50-50 if she knows that they're not with her. Like,
mhm.
it's not even like George and Cara, where George is definitely going for Cara. Like, there's pros and cons to Danny and Flick. She did get voted out last night, although Danny was immune. So I mean, I think that she doesn't play it because she's fully blindsided by Wayne Haley. Like, I think she thinks that they're with her.
Mhm. I just think that's a risky bet to make, right? You got to play the idol.
Well, I mean, that's how well they do it blindsiding her. I think that there is some merit in keeping it. Like, that's so risky. There's no
Sure.
one to protect
Maybe if
you.
you're like 100% sure of what's going to happen, don't play the idol. But she should not have been 100% sure because she's wrong.
Yeah, she's blindsided, so she has the wrong information. But I think that if she's thinking through it so objectively, which again I don't think is true, but if she is, I'd be thinking, okay, they might be with me, Wayne Haley, in which case we win out. In which case, if I keep the idol, then next time instead of them like going back to Kara, they can't split on us. They might have to come with us, or we have all the power because we have an idol, or they vote against
Well,
us,
how
but they
could
vote
they
out.
split on them if it's going to be the final 5?
Exactly, they can't. So that's why it's good to have the idol
Mhm.
for the final 5 and kind of like maintain power through 5.
Oh, they're
So
going to flip back with
yeah, and
Kara?
defeat like you get back with Kara. So then they can't. So that's good. If they're going to vote against you but vote for Danny, then you really need the idol at the final 5, right?
Mhm.
Because now the score has been maintained. If they're going to vote out you, now you've been voted out. So I think there's
Mhm.
2 situations where you do want to keep the idol, but it's a huge risk because you might get voted out. There's merit to the risk. It's how much does she think that Danny is like the alpha in this pair? Like the
Yeah.
George that's definitely going to go before Kara.
I just feel like if you're Flick, you can't be sure about Haley. I mean, that the same like when we talk about the definition of insanity, yesterday, the same
Yeah.
thing happened.
Yeah.
Haley and Way said they were with you and they lied. And now you have an opportunity to protect yourself at this tribal council. And perhaps she felt like, okay, well, it's going to be Danny if
Yeah.
ultimately but they voted for you yesterday, but I guess Danny was immune. Maybe that played a factor in it. Like, oh, it was always going to be Danny and she won immunity. But if you're Flick, play the idol tonight. You could A, find the idol at the final 5. B, Flick's a real threat to win
Yeah.
immunity. So you have a lot of other outs. And so like I feel like that if you're Flick, I don't know if you necessarily like lose the game at the final 5 because you didn't have the idol.
Yeah. I think that the risk could possibly outweigh the merits in terms of like that would suck to go in the final 6. Like just make it to tomorrow. Just make sure you're in the final 5 and work on it then. I think I agree with you. And I also think that as we talk through these pros and cons, it's just not what she's thinking. Like I truly think
Mhm.
that she just thinks that Wayne Haley are
Yeah.
with her and she's getting blindsided like many people do with an idol.
Yep.
And like they don't know she has an idol. But I was gonna say they could have voted her out and they wouldn't have to deal with the idol. She could have passed it to Danny.
That's
So
true. That is
it
true.
wouldn't have mattered because that pair's gonna have an idol at the final 5 regardless of who's there. So it becomes irrelevant. But
Okay.
she got pretty lucky this week, Flake.
Sure. All
How many
right.
times do you think that Flake has voted correctly since the merge?
Um, I'll say twice.
It was one time. It was the Haley vote. That didn't happen.
Mhm. Yeah.
One time.
Okay. Was there anything else from episode 21?
I had a couple of random things. So when they asked how the spa reward was on the mat, Danny says there was dressing gowns, jacuzzi, sparkles, and cheese. Which sounds delightful, obviously. Like I like all those things, but where were the sparkles?
We didn't see them.
We didn't see
Maybe
sparkles.
is sparkles like code for champagne or something like that?
Maybe. I don't drink, so maybe.
Mhm.
Okay, is that it?
I
I'll
don't know.
Google it.
If it is, it's Australian slang.
Okay, we'll Google it. But anyway, what else? Flick and Danny trying to appeal to Haley by being like, they're going to take you out. But it's like, wouldn't they also take her out? And also, they're also not even just saying it to Haley, they're saying it to each other. Like, oh, Haley has to come with us because George and Cara will take her out. It's like, but you two will also take, like, why are you both so convinced at this point? What else does my note say? Oh, when the 4 girls are talking about like who they're splitting on with George and Cara, Haley's like, I'd like to put George's name down. Something she has used in the past to screw them over on the split, and she has the audacity to use the same line. I thought that was funny. Yeah.
Look, the same things are going to happen. This is Groundhog Day for Danny and Flick.
Did you catch the shot of the birds almost flying into each other?
No, I did not.
That made me sad. They're okay, I made sure, but like...
Ulmer checked in?
Yeah, I mean, I thought I want to hear from him because I feel like he'd be upset about that shot. What else? That's basically it.
Final 5, last week.
Yeah. Well, I did think it was the last week when doing this podcast with Baden, and it was not. Because they split it very last minute. What are things the last minute?
How did they split it? There's only 3 episodes. They did 2 and 1?
And then 1.
Okay.
That's all right. An extra podcast that I wasn't anticipating.
Okay, so let's see how it all unwinds. So we're gonna have what? The final 5, and then the final 4 is gonna be an episode, and then we'll have the final 3 and then 2 in the final tribal council in the finale.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. And well, this was my least favorite week. Week 8, number 1.
Oh, okay.
Very excited about it.
All right. Well, I'm excited to hear about a big finish. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited for the final week. There are no more urns. I can promise you that.
No more urns. All right. So should we talk about the Chizzy this week?
I can't see anything about Sparkles. I think they were actually Sparkles.
Maybe
Sparkles is like a dog, and a dog came.
Okay.
Maybe
I didn't see a dog.
I mean, that was in my screener.
You want loyalty? Get Sparkles.
Sparkles would be a good name for a dog. Maybe a dog came. Maybe that's what she meant. I'll just text Danny, ask what she meant about Sparkles.
What? You're in a text relationship with Danny?
You didn't really believe that.
Okay. Oh, well, I'm surprised.
Yeah. Rob, I wasn't even trying to trick you. I was just being sarcastic and you believed it.
The Queen of Rewards is going to take you out. Give you a ride in the D-Max.
I know. I had a joke that I didn't want to make because I noticed, similarly to last week, that Danny found the idol and she put it in her assets, as Flick said.
Okay.
I had like a double D-Max joke that I'm double so sorry. I'm done now. Yes. I think that's it.
Okay.
That wasn't in my notes. That was just something in my brain.
Let's talk about the Chizzy points. Okay. Yeah, this week, I feel like probably have to give 3 to Haley. I think she's controlling. Really, she's the decision maker here. She wins immunity against Andrew earlier on in the game, and she's in a very comfortable position here heading into the final 5. Has a lot of different ways that she could go.
And
one way. She has Way as an ally. She still has Flick from back in the day. That was a number that was she had a chance to work with to get Simon out of the game. And then if she so desires, can continue to work with George and Cara. It would be very unlikely for George and Cara to start working with Flick, especially after Flick was so anti-George at the last tribal council. So feels like a very good spot to be Haley. So she will get 3 Chizzy points. I will give 2 to George. He is still doing a great job. I mean, he doesn't have a ton of agency at this point in the game. I mean, he's sort of just like along for the ride, but he has also like endeared himself enough to Haley at this point where she is not actively working to get him out of the game. And a lot of the plans that he has made like have gone his way. So I will say I will give 2 to George, and I will give 1 to Way, who ultimately wins immunity in the final week of the season, is in a very good position here heading into the final 5. aligned with Haley. And everybody knows she loves words. And here she is, winner of 1 Chizzy point.
Yeah, Beta and I both gave 3 to Haley, 2 to Wei. I gave 1 to George. He gave 1 to Flick for finding the idol, mostly, I think. I am more impressed, as I'm saying, with George on the rewatch. I think Wei does well as well. In terms of Haley, I'm interested seeing how much he's saying, like, at a point I want to take out George. Because obviously watching it, I was like, that will definitely, like, one of them taking out the other one. That's obviously what I thought was going to happen. And I guess it's something we'll talk about next week, but I just wonder if we like take away a little bit of credit for never having that happen, or is it like it's good to be adaptable? I guess we'll see how it plays out and why it gets to that point, but it's just very interesting hearing everyone say, gotta take out George, such a threat, I'm gonna do that eventually. No one ever does. And maybe it's just something that we should talk about and credit next week and just think about how.
Yeah, but she also might have the perception of the jury to know like where this thing is headed as well, and maybe doesn't see him as ultimately a threat to win the game. And also as somebody who is at this point not even trying in the challenges, and somebody who would be a very beatable person heading into the late game immunity challenges.
Yes, which is something obviously we spoke about with heroes versus villains. So,
and really, if you're Haley, I mean, do you want to be going up against like going into some sort of final 3 challenge against, Flick and Danny, who are probably, just as formidable as Haley is going into these challenges? Or would you like to go into these challenges with Wei and George and Kara?
Yeah, from a physical perspective, like it's another reason Haley just like has to make these moves. Like especially Flick, who's obviously going to make it to the final 5 here, with an idol. So maybe that's why you go Flick over Danny, just because Danny is good at like all the carnival games, and that's won her a lot of rewards, but not as much for endurance. And knowing that the final challenge will always be endurance, possibly that's a big decision in terms of should we have taken out Flick over Danny.
I mean, you can't let Flick get near the end of the game. I mean, Flick has like this amazing story. Her mom passed away during the season. Like you can't mess around with that. And then Danny, I'm sure, also has like a really like great story, and people will be rooting for her. I think she has persevered through a lot of things, and I think that the jury would come around on somebody like Danny. So I feel like both of them are actually like pretty dangerous to have sit in the final 2.
Yeah, like Flick hasn't won an immunity challenge. Danny has, and a bunch of rewards. But I still think like the most dangerous challenges are going to be at the end that are going to be endurance. And Flick, even though she's always close, she's always like top 2 or 3. She's literally a surfer, like a professional surfer. So yeah, and as much as they both are big threats that I think would probably beat any of the others in a jury matchup, Flick is that much bigger. Like you cannot go like that isn't, you don't even, there's no point, would be no point having an argument at Final Tribal Council where at least you could try and do something against Danny. So maybe that should have been the thing, that they prioritize Flick over Danny. But because I mean, both of them would block up the end game in really unfortunate ways based on the fact that they have an idol no one knows about. Both have challenge capacity, and both are people you don't want to sit next to at the end. So it does make their incentives pretty clear all week, and that I think is what led to a pretty boring week. But yeah.
Okay.
Who would you vote for, Flick or Danny? Who for you would be?
Who would I vote out, or who would I vote for in the end?
Vote out. Because like, why did they go for Danny over Flick?
I think that they probably wanted to vote out. I mean, Danny's been winning all the comps. I think they wanted to probably vote her out at the previous tribal council, and she won immunity. So I think that she was probably public enemy number 1 in terms of who was going to go home. And I think that Flick only got voted out probably because Danny won immunity.
Yeah, but why?
Like, because she keeps winning the challenges. I mean, she's a very I don't know how many challenge wins she has this season.
Well, that's true. I mean, she's the top 3 and then wins the fire. She wins an individual immunity challenge. She's won 2 individual rewards and a couple of group rewards. I think it was 2 and 2. Yeah, Flick's like a professional athlete as well.
Yeah, but Flick just has not won as many challenges.
She's always close.
She's close. She's right there, but Danny is the closer.
Yeah, well, we'll miss Danny, for real.
Miss her. Yes.
Yeah, that's week 7.
All right. Anything else about 7 weeks of Australian Survivor again?
No, just how are you feeling? You feel like liking it, having a good? I mean, this is not the week to
It's
ask, but
yeah, it's been a lot of fun, and even on a slower week, I still have very much enjoyed getting together with you every week, and I have never once second guessed the decision to do this. I'm so glad that we did this.
good.
We have so much fun when we get together. And Shannon, before we came on, you were telling me how you did something that you don't normally do.
Yes. Due to my therapy, I don't go and seek out what people are saying about me anymore. So it's good. It's a good
Mhm,
boundary I've created. I should stick with that. But anyway, today if I was like, you know what? I bet the YouTube comments for this are fine. I wonder what people are saying. And that was a risky little game. But no, the YouTube comments were so nice. I went and checked every podcast of what people are saying. And I really appreciate it because I've loved, the Twitter interactions, the patron group. It's been so fun. And yeah, just to see that, like, not only are people so nice, but also they've embraced the insanity. They're very much
yeah,
talking about,
they're
you
here for the
know,
ride.
Robbo and Shaz and the
I
do we
love
dunk two
Robbo.
times? Yeah, because one of the comments said that from a gendered capacity, like men don't do the zit as much.
Yeah,
Like
Robbo
it
would
wouldn't
be
be bros.
great. I would love if that
Robbo,
would stick.
I don't think that's true. Like if you're Warren, you'd be like was. I think that there is like a was-a. I think there is a Z component or a Z component of all Australian names when we can. But I do think you probably are Robbo.
I love it.
You love Robbo? Robbo
Yeah.
has a podcast. Oh.
Mhm.
Robbo has a podcast. Oh. Change the whole
Well,
name.
I am Italian.
Yeah, it's kind of similar. People
Mhm.
always say those cultures are similar.
Mhm. Yeah.
Anyway, I wanted to thank everyone for how much they've embraced this podcast series and how nice everyone is and how much I'm enjoying it. Like it's been such a fun, slow pace after the beginning of the year to just like watch the episodes, chat to you,
Mhm.
and have such a good time with it. So I've really enjoyed it.
Shannon, what will you do next after this is over?
I have a life. No, I have a life.
I hope that there's like more international Survivor coming this year.
Let's not talk about it, Rob.
Mhm. I hope it happens.
Rob wants to talk about production decisions on the
I'll
podcast, and
keep
I
my
keep telling
fingers
him
crossed.
no.
Keep my fingers crossed.
Just talk about it. If you want to talk about it, talk about it. It's your
No,
podcast,
I'm
though.
just we're just saying. I hope that more countries make a Survivor this year.
Okay. What Rob is alluding to is that UK Survivor is coming
Hmm.
imminently. And
I don't think it's quite imminent, but just something on your radar.
I'm currently auditioning to cover it. And this is
Okay,
my audition.
you're in
How did I go?
consideration. You're in consideration for sure.
I'm hoping we're gonna cover
You're
it.
on a very short list.
Thank you. After 5.5 years in this
Hmm.
role, that
Hmm.
means a lot to me.
Yes.
This and what I have made a double D-Max joke. This is the kind of quality content you're not getting anywhere else.
True.
Rob.
That's true.
Robo.
Okay. All right. All right, Shannon. Anything else coming up for you? Are you going to be on any other
Yes.
podcast soon? Yes.
Yes. Finally, we did it. I'm gonna be on the Claim to Fame recap next week.
Do you
Ring
have
bells.
takes? Are you coming in with, have you solved more people than we've talked about on the podcast?
Honestly, no.
Okay.
Really. I look to you guys. You tell me who the
Yeah.
people are. I have strategic takes.
Okay,
Right?
good. All right. Well, it's a very strategic game, Claim to Fame. So looking
So
forward.
strategic, which we'll talk
Yes.
about. Yes, it's such a good show. I'm mostly just going to come in and just praise I love it. I love your coverage with Jenny. I'm really excited. I don't think I've probably podcasted with Jenny on not like a game so I'm really excited about that.
Okay.
That's it.
Well, that'll be very fun. Well, I'm looking forward to that. Check us out on Monday for Claim to Fame. You could subscribe to that podcast feed. Go to robinswebsite.com/fame feed. And then lots of other fun stuff going on this week. Speaking of Australia, I got to talk about the premiere of Below Deck: Down Under.
I really thought you were going to say
As
Stars on Mars. How many Australian-based shows are you covering? 3.
a couple. But we talked about the Below Deck: Sailing Yacht finale with myself, Chappelle, and Sasha Joseph earlier on Wednesday. And so you could check that out. Plus, Phil Kogan joined us to talk Tough as
Oh,
Nails season 5 this week. And of course,
I
our
haven't
friend
that, really?
Dr. Christian Hubicki stopped by for another round of Ask Dr. Hubicki.
You're a busy man, Rob. What is Below Deck? Is that like a reality competition, or is it
No,
like
it's not a competition. It is just people who work on like luxury yachts. And so that there is a lot of drama that happens like intra crew, and then a lot of drama that happens with the people that they take out who are often behave horribly.
Okay. Sounds like a wild ride. Also, Stars on Mars, someone that I like is on it now. They were an intruder. Are you
Okay.
still covering that show?
Yes. Podcast coming Thursday.
And Ashley I is on it now from The
Okay.
Bachelor.
All right.
Right? Is she?
Yes. I believe so.
If I had to do a pop quiz on Ashley I's wedding right now, I'd get 100%.
100%. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us here. Next time we will be with the season will be over. Next time we get together, Shannon.
Who's gonna win? What's gonna happen?
Yes.
You don't know
Yes.
who wins.
Okay. All right. So thank you so much for joining us. Take care, everybody. Have a good one. Bye.